The Super Mario Bros. Movie met my expectations. Let me just get that out of the way. I was not disappointed by the Mario movie. But I kinda wish I could have been. That probably sounds like the most nonsensical, overly critical statement I've ever made, so let me explain. From the very moment it was announced, the Mario movie has existed in a state of low expectations. When Nintendo revealed in early 2018 that they were partnering with Illumination to bring Mario to the big screen, people were not thrilled, and that thrill level dwindled into the negatives during the most hilarious Mario event of all time, the casting announcement. What? Why? What is going on? What? What? At this point, the concept of the movie being anything but a dumpster fire seemed ludicrous, to the point where people were actively hoping it would be bad enough to be entertaining in place of just being bad. Expectations were at an all-time low. But then, trailers came out, and hey, things don't seem so awful. There were still things to poke fun at, like the infamous reading of Mushroom Kingdom, here we come. But overall, the primary audience critiquing the movie up to that point had essentially done a 180, and heading into the release of the film, fans seemed more confident than ever. However, there was one final obstacle that made it apparent that those low expectations never fully disappeared: the critics. Prior to the movie even being available to the public, Mario fans bombarded negative reviews with these bizarre backhanded compliments in defense of a movie they hadn't seen, most of which can be summarized as, why would you expect insert basic aspect of film in the Funny Man Mario movie? Of course, these comments only increased in prevalence as more and more people actually saw the movie. Despite the incredible confidence in the quality of the film prior to its release, the moment people started analyzing it like a movie, fans instantly retreated back into those low expectations, perpetuating a what did you expect mindset that indirectly insults the movie more than the critic they're supposedly defending it from did. And while I was never on the strange critic bashing side as a lot of others were, I gotta say, I carried a similar mindset. Not to be pessimistic or anything, but even at the height of the Mario movie hype, the most I expected was a fun 5 to 6 out of 10 movie that felt rewarding to the Mario fan in me, and that's exactly what I received. But as more and more time passed after I'd seen the movie, and more tweets explaining why you shouldn't have expected the film to do X, Y, and Z filled my feed, I strangely found that the Mario movie wasn't the movie on my mind. It was the Lego movie. These movies have a lot of similarities. Both were looked down on prior to their releases, both are films based on existing properties that people expected to be glorified commercials, both performed very well in theaters, and both star Chris Pratt as a lovable everyman protagonist. But there's one key difference between the two. People, fans and critics alike, analyze and enjoy the Lego movie as a movie. On the other hand, the Mario movie is essentially sold as a fun-for-fans roller coaster ride, with people acting like examining it as a movie is somehow wrong. I wish I could have gone into the Mario movie expecting a film, but I just wasn't capable of doing so. So, that got me thinking. If I wasn't just at the theater to do the Leo pointing meme at every single reference, or to pop off every time I recognize a musical cue, if I was looking at the Mario movie as a movie, what would I do to make it better? Well, spoiler alert, let's get into heavy detail. I'm not going to alter every scene in the movie or anything, but for the sake of making this video easy to follow, I'll be going through my changes in the order in which they appear. So, first things first, let's head to Brooklyn. I actually don't think this part of the movie is all that flawed, mostly because it's about setting up themes and arcs rather than following through on those themes and arcs. But there's still a change I would make here. Mario and Luigi's commercial is more successful. This would lead to a montage of the bros failing at plumbing in various instances and locations as they try to meet every call they get throughout the day. Their failures are never due to their own incompetence, but always an external, uncontrollable factor, culminating in one last job, which ends up being nearly identical to the one in the movie, with the sole difference being that it's Mayor Pauline's house. This change accomplishes a couple things. One, Mario's dejection feels a little more earned. No fault of his own, his business has gotten stomped into the dirt today, seemingly angering all of Brooklyn despite doing nothing wrong. And when he and Luigi thought they could fix everything by doing a great job with the Pauline's plumbing, her crazy dog prevented them from doing so. That last bit of hope and optimism was stripped away. This makes Mario's desire to risk his life in the sewers saving Brooklyn make a little more sense, and additionally, adds to his character trait of never giving up. Two, and this is a big one, it makes Brooklyn feel more lived in. I don't really feel anything when Spike leads the community in a cheer for the Mario Bros at the end of the movie, because outside of Spike himself, and the weird Secret Life of Pets looking dog, we haven't seen any history between the Bros and these people. Would How to Train Your Dragon's ending have hit as hard if we had no idea how the people who are now congratulating Hiccup felt about him prior? Of course not. Give Brooklyn a few more recognizable faces who were angry at Mario and Luigi earlier, and now the scene feels earned. Next up, let's talk about Toad. In a movie filled with, let's be real, nothing characters, Toad really feels like the nothingest character of them all. He adds very little to the plot, and has what feels like a non-existent connection to the rest of the cast. He fills a common trope, the overeager sidekick to contrast against the far less enthusiastic protagonist who declines their friendship. But the thing about that trope is, it's usually concluded by the characters, becoming friends. Shrek and Donkey's relationship comes to mind, but for a more modern example that coincidentally occurs in the same universe, also Puss and Perito. The Mario movie plants the seeds of this relationship very early on, with Toad referring to Mario as his best friend, but never does anything with it. There's nothing in the movie that leads me to believe that Mario even likes Toad more than he did when they first met, let alone had a friendship blossom. So I'm gonna do my best to rectify this by giving Toad one additional line of dialogue. Yep, one. The Fire Flower Field scene, to me, felt like wasted potential. Sure, we get Peach's backstory, but this is one of the sole instances in the movie where our characters have a quiet moment amongst one another. Ideally, it would have been used to expand the relationship between our trio of traveling companions. Let Mario open up a little bit about his pre-established insecurities. Let him talk about how he's constantly being underestimated and how small he feels, and how he knows he can provide more to the world. And then, have Toad say, "I know what you mean." So much gets accomplished with a single line because it immediately makes sense. Toad is a Toad. Of course he feels underestimated and underappreciated. Heck, Peach even acted like it was a big deal that a member of his species was brave enough to join her on this quest. It's such an easy parallel to make to Mario's struggles, and the two characters could connect over it with hardly any words being exchanged. It's not some complex backstory for Toad, nor would it push him to be the best character in the movie, but it adds the slightest bit of depth to a character that, as it stands, has none. Let's move on to Mario's fight with Donkey Kong, which will also see a major alteration. Mario beats DK without any power-ups. I'm honestly just shocked they didn't go in this direction. This kind of ties into a larger issue I have with the movie, which I refer to as the power-up problem. Mario goes through an obstacle course to train at the beginning of the movie, but Super Mushroom aside, that training never seems to come into play when he uses a power-up. When he uses the cat suit, or Tanuki suit, it just feels like he's on autopilot and detracts from both the training that the movie presented as extremely important and his inevitable victory. What's the point of getting better when a random power is going to do all the work? As such, having Mario defeat Donkey Kong with nothing but his smarts and natural athleticism would add a lot to his character and heavily tie into his arc. Cranky Kong doesn't think he can do this, Peach doesn't think he can do this, but he knows he can, and he can do it alone. Mario can still cycle through a few power-ups during the fight, but his victory should come from outsmarting and outmaneuvering Donkey Kong on his own, using his superior agility to turn DK's impulsivity against him. This is a small one, but around this point, halfway through the movie, let's go back to Mario and Luigi's family. Have Mario's mom be worried that her boys haven't come home for dinner, with their dad letting his gruff demeanor falter a little bit as he thinks about the last thing he said to his son. If these characters, especially the dad, are going to be as important to our protagonist's development as they are, it would be nice to see them receive a little more depth outside of filling the role of disappointed at the beginning, approving at the end. When the only thing we know about Mario's dad is that he disapproves of his son's career choices, it doesn't make for the most compelling anchor for an arc. Let's talk Luigi. For a film titled The Super Mario Bros. Movie, they really do bench one of the bros for a considerable amount of it. That being said, I don't disagree with the direction they went in. Luigi getting captured is an excellent idea. The movie does a great job showing just how close he and Mario are, so the personal stakes are way higher with Greenstash captured than they would be if Mario had to risk his life to save a princess he's never met. But I don't think Luigi being captured means he has to be used as little as he was. For one, let him spend more time with Bowser. Bowser interrogating Luigi is probably my favorite scene in the movie from an unironic standpoint. It's equally hilarious and heartwarming, with both actors giving their all in their performances. But we never revisit this incredible dynamic they set up. Have Bowser keep Luigi caged up by his side instead of giving him the immediate dungeon treatment. This allows for the characters to bounce off each other more, with Luigi reacting in horror to Bowser's heinous plots and devious actions. Not only would this add a lot of natural humor to the film, but it also gives Luigi some much needed screen time. It'd be great if upon hearing about the Rainbow Road ambush, Luigi finds the courage to stand up to Bowser and tell him to leave his brother alone, which would infuriate Bowser enough to send him to the dungeon. This would lay a bit more groundwork for Luigi's eventual show of bravery in the climax, since he's now given us a glimpse of that courage, albeit briefly. Originally, I was going to close the video out with a point about giving the Blue Shell Koopa General a little more to do so his intense hatred for Mario felt built up to, but I realized that giving him any more screen time really takes away from the ironically hilarious self-sacrifice he makes for absolutely no reason, so I'll leave it be. Instead, for my final and most important change, I am banning Illumination from slow-mo shots. Seriously, it felt like every other shot was in slow motion. You have an obsession, Chris. You need to stop. No more slow-mo. Let him move at a normal speed.